What's up, YouTube? I'm Mike, and today I'm back with another video. We got the white t-shirt on. So those of you who've been following my channel for a while know that this is going to be a lit video. If you are not familiar with my channel, you're getting ready to find out how I do it around here. You could probably tell from the title of this video, this is about to be some seriously personal information that's going to be shared here. So this is not kid friendly for probably most families. I don't know how honest you are with your kids about the multifaceted life that we live, but this is probably not going to be something that you're going to want to have playing at the off. This is not safe for work information right here. Also, for some of the new subscribers that have come to my channel from various places, whether it's my ex-employer or some of the videos that have been done about me, Coach K's video, another guy made a video about me. This is not my bedroom, guys. This is my office. That's just a backup bed that I have in here because my wife snores. And sometimes I can't sleep and I have to have a backup bed. And sometimes we fight and I have to have a backup bed. So this is not my, somebody was like, damn, what's going on with this guy's bedroom? This is my office. I just happen to have a cheap bed back there for the backup purposes I described. That all being said, what we're actually talking about today is a topic that I think is really important for women all over the world. It's a topic that it's really sad, honestly. If you are a woman or a couple and you have found this video, the fact that you're having to look at this video to possibly get answers that nobody else has been able to give you is a testament to the total miscarriage of justice that is taking place in this country and really around the world when it comes to women's health. Women's health is just so mismanaged in the world that we live in. It is tragic, and it's terrible what my wife as an individual has had to go through, what she and I as a couple have had to go through, what her and her ex-husband had to go through, and women all over the world who struggle with libido and lubrication problems. We have run the gamut of going through all of the tried and true methods for trying to solve both of these issues. And so we're going to go over some of the things that we've done. I'm going to go over some of the things that we've done, some of the things that we've been told, some of the common misconceptions, and try to do an all-inclusive video on this topic because this is a topic that really affects millions of women around the world. And it may be something that doesn't affect you now, but will affect you when you are perimenopausal or menopausal, or you should go through a major depressive situation. There's all kinds of situations where libido and lubrication could become a problem for you, even if they're not currently. So hopefully this information will serve to help women all over the world. So I'm going to give you a tiny bit of backstory. And this is just to kind of reference where my wife is coming from, but this really applies to so many cases as you will see as I describe. So the sort of genesis of my wife's sexual problems, if you want to call them that, stem from the fact, we guess, it's not, you can't necessarily just very clearly point the finger and say this specific thing is the definitive cause, especially when psychology is involved and all of these other myriad factors. But my wife was raised in an extremely conservative, fundamentalist Christian household. Again, Cliff's Notes version. If you want deeper information on this, I've made a number of videos on the topic. But she was raised in a kind of household where basically she was taught that her behavior, she as a person was responsible for the sexual sins committed by men. So girls in her church were instructed not to behave sexually, not to behave provocatively, not to dress in certain kind of ways. Basically, don't do anything that could elicit a sexual response in a man, because the girl was responsible for any impure thoughts that her behavior or her attire or her demeanor might cause. Wow, right? Like, I hope my wife is in an extreme minority of people and that there are not a lot of women in our world being raised with this very, very damaging ideology. She was also taught to basically shun any of her body's natural responses to stimuli. So anything that quote unquote felt good basically was bad. So anytime something would be stimulating to her, she would try to stop the stimulation or disconnect from it mentally or whatever. And so she did not engage in any type of masturbatory behavior. And she was a virgin until she was married at 27 years of age. This is not, again, a blanket statement for all women. Apparently, everybody's body is different. But to the best guess of a myriad of sex therapists and doctors and all kinds of medical professionals, due to the fact that my wife basically didn't use a part of her body for what it's designed to be used for, because she did not stimulate certain parts of her anatomy in any way for 27 very long years, she experienced what's called vaginal atrophy, where basically just kind of like a muscle, it's kind of a use it or lose it situation, and it caused vaginal atrophy. Vaginal atrophy then leads to a lot of sexual problems once you start to try to use this organ that has been neglected terribly for decades. And it doesn't respond very well. It doesn't really know how to respond. And so lubrication can be a problem. Libido can be a problem. Sex can be very, very uncomfortable, which is primarily what she experienced. And then you've got, on top of the physical situations that are occurring, you've got all of the psychological drama that comes with this, feeling inadequate, feeling, even when she was able to finally let go of the stigma that was put on her by the church or by her family or whatever, even when she's now safe to explore this because she's married in the eyes of God finally. When the body just doesn't naturally respond the way she expected it to, and there was a lot of problems and issues that are outside the scope of this video, it caused a lot of problems, significant problems in her first marriage. And, some might argue was the major contributing factor. They had a lot of issues, but it was definitely a major contributing factor, a major stressor. And they spent quite my wife has been through a lot. It's really sad to hear her story. She may make a follow-up video to this on her own channel where she can tell her story in her own words. But the extreme kinds of things that she's had to go through in life trying to right this condition has been really very tragic. And it's traumatic, and it's difficult on all of the people who are around you, around this person, sharing in their struggles and their misery. And so when we got together, luckily I was, I don't know, I guess I had the magic touch. I was able to, we from the gate, we were always able to have a functional sex life that she had not been able to have with her prior husband. I was able to talk her through a lot of the issues and the concerns, and use different tools, like lubricants and toys and things to start trying to awaken her body and get her into a state of being comfortable with her own sensations and desires and feelings and all these things. And this has been a process that we have been going through for the past 10 years. And so in the early going, we got to a state where she could function regularly without pain. She could enjoy intercourse, but we were hopelessly dependent upon lubricants, and she was sort of a willing participant, because here she is basically with little to no libido to speak of, but she's trying her best to be a good partner to her husband, me, who has a raging high libido by nature, And then that was just made infinitely worse when I started using anabolics. And so here I have a libido where I'm trying to get it 2 times a day, every single day, week in, week out. And she's in a state that, you know, she talked about in some of our earlier videos on this channel, where she like could, you know, maybe be interested like 3 days a week at a max. She just didn't have the desire for this act, even though she was able to orgasm and experience sexual pleasure, even though the acts were working, for some reason there was still no desire. And I cannot tell you how psychologically damaging and hurtful that was for me. I had never experienced this in my previous relationships. I have always had relationships where, you know, my previous marriage, my wife and I had sex on average 27 times a month. You know, basically we were shooting for once a day, every day, but, you know, things happen, right? Life gets in the way. So on average, it was safe to say that I was used to sex 27 times a month in a pre-anabolic state. And my experience was always that women had desire, just like men. And then I get with this girl who seems to have little to no desire, and I had all kinds of fears. You know, is she a lesbian? She's not attracted to me? You know, like she's broken. This atrophy is never gonna work. Or just all of these things that, you know, you could psychologically come up against. And the thing that was so confusing to me was that it was very clearly working. So again, without getting into a lot of gory details, I want this video to be freely public. You know, some women have. She's a squirter. Okay, that's what I'm trying to say. Okay, and so it's very easy to tell. And I'm not arguing that what the realism of that there's plenty of videos on that. I'm not even getting into that topic. It's very easy to tell if an act is successful or not. That I have zero doubts of. So when you can physically see all kinds of signs and symptoms of the success of a sex act, and yet your partner still seems to have no need at all to recreate this on a regular basis, it can create a lot of doubt and insecurity in me, for example, in the person in that person's partner, and that's something that was very damaging and hard for us to cope with in our marriage. So, you know, in her previous marriage, she had marital counseling to discuss these things. We had marital counseling to discuss these things in our current marriage. And then we set out on the road of trying to solve this with chemicals and with other things. So we had gotten to a state where she could function sexually, she could finish, she could orgasm, and but there was still no lubrication really at all to speak of, and there was little to no desire. And so one of the first things that we tried, very ignorantly, I admit, was I got it into my head that maybe her testosterone levels were low. And that if we could increase her testosterone levels, that we could increase her sex drive. It worked in me, why wouldn't it work in her? And so we came across a bunch of data, and again, I've made a lot of videos on this, and I don't want this runtime to be too long, because I know you guys are basically just like trying to get to the answer. The testosterone did work to some degree or another. The testosterone definitely massively increased her libido. She went from a state of basically never thinking about sex to spending some portion. We used to trade like little dirty gifts, like sex gifts. We would like send those back and forth to each other during the day while I was at work or whatever, just trying to get into a mindset of thinking about this more frequently during the day, trying to like kind of reprogram her mind to think about something for so many years she was programmed to not think about. And so the testosterone did work temporarily. The problem is that the testosterone in all of the doses that we tried, and we tried a very unfortunately high dose that caused some lasting side effects, and then we tried very, very low typical female replacement doses. And while those doses did work, they didn't work as good as the higher doses, and they came with a host of side effects. Testosterone caused her to have very bad acne, but the biggest problem was that it caused a lot of rapid hair growth. She had, before going on testosterone, had total laser hair removal surgery all over her body, and the very short amount of testosterone she was on really started to reverse that to a great degree. It caused so much hair growth in the nether regions that she was having to shave twice a day, or like, it was painful to me. And so this was clearly not going to solve our problem. We've made videos talking about how testosterone did work, and so I'm trying to kind of go back and cover all of the things that worked to a degree, but didn't end up actually solving the problem. So then the second thing we tried was Anavar. And she took an Anavar cycle, and again, we had a similar set of circumstances where her libido was substantially better than baseline, but it came with a whole host of side effects. The Anavar was nowhere near as masculinizing as the testosterone was, even at a very low dose. The lowest dose she tried was 3 milligrams a week. That was the only dose she could tolerate without having extreme side effects, but at the dose of 3 milligrams a week, she really wasn't getting that much libido to speak of. And it still wasn't solving the lubrication problem. And so we got to a point where we just felt like the testosterone was not worth the risk. She ran Anavar in multiple cycles for extended periods of time. And the Anavar was extremely good at doing what Anavar is supposed to do. Her body has never looked better than when she was on Anavar. She had abs. She was peeled and cut and lean, and I have a lot of pictures of her in various locations that can still be found if one were so inclined, of her body in tip-top anabolic condition. But again, this was not a real solution to our problem, because it only worked while she was on Anavar. The Anavar caused a very common side effect known as Varbot, where basically she would be emotionally detached in this really awkward kind of way, just kind of made her robotic. And so while suddenly she had this enhanced libido, she kind of disappeared emotionally. And so here you're back to this give and take, where like you're getting part of what you want, but it's coming at the cost of something that you don't want to give away. And so once again, Anavar was not a solution. We, to some degree, were beginning to give up hope on this. And then I think what we did first, and she may correct me if she's out there, eventually we tried Primobolan. The thinking behind Primobolan was that she could use a higher dose relative to testosterone. I know this is one of the contentions that I had with Coach K, is 20 milligrams of Primobolan is not equivalent to 20 milligrams of testosterone. Not even close. My wife currently takes 20 milligrams of Primobolan per week. She has been taking 20 milligrams of Primobolan per week for, I think, over a year now, approaching a year now. And she has very little to no side effects from it. She does not have the extreme hair growth, although of course it is more than baseline. It is very, very manageable. It did cause her an unfortunate degree of acne, which she chose to treat with isotretinoin rather than coming off the Primobolan, because the Primobolan did have a very positive effect on her libido. That being said, the positive effect that the Primo had on her libido was very consistent with other anabolics. It produced more sexual thoughts, more sexual interest, but did nothing to solve the lubrication. And it wasn't really solving the real and true libido problem. It was just making her more interested, more receptive, but it didn't really fulfill the pathway of creating genuine desire. And so again, for me, this is a concerning set of circumstances. We're 9 years into a marriage. We've tried all kinds of things, lubes, toys, anabolics, therapy sessions, you name it, we tried it. And, you kind of get to the point where you go, man, it's not her, it's me, right? Like this woman just doesn't love me. She just doesn't care about me. Her body just doesn't respond to me. I don't arouse her. I don't turn her on. I don't engage her desire. And we were literally at our wits' end, to the point that sort of tangential to this, she'd started perimenopause, and she has really bad periods, very long, very heavy periods. One of the reasons that we were trying to use anabolics was because during periods of her anabolic use, it would stop her periods, and her PMDD/PMS symptoms would be substantially improved. And so while I'm on the one hand trying to solve libido issues and lubrication issues, I'm also trying to tamp down these 7-day heavy flow periods that come with a whole lot of emotional variability. And so what we actually intended to do was to get her a total hysterectomy. That was what we were prepared to do. We had read many things online where women had said that a total hysterectomy was necessary to completely resolve their PMDD symptoms. We had gone all the way to the point of going and finding a doctor and trying to convince her to do a total hysterectomy on an otherwise healthy adult female, and she didn't quite refuse, but it was like as close to refusal as you could get. She said what she would prefer to do was to balance her hormones. So we did a bunch of hormone checks, and lo and behold, the one thing that I hadn't really been thinking of all along was that there are at least two hormones involved in the sexual function of both males and females. And I had just kind of been, I guess, blindly presuming that because she was a female, we didn't really need to worry about her estrogen levels. So it was always the androgen that I was primarily focused on. And when her blood work came back, she had barely as much estrogen in her system as I do. In fact, there are a number of times on cycles where I had more estrogen in her body than she did. And so her doctor went about putting her on estrogen replacement therapy. And lo and fucking behold, when we started adding estrogen to the mix, her libido went through the roof, and suddenly she began to self-lubricate. So for 9 years, I had spent thinking I wasn't enough, I wasn't the one for her, she was a lesbian, she was broken, like all of the negative self-talk, all of it's depression, it's like all of the things that we were pointing the finger at. When her estrogen levels came up out of the toilet, suddenly every part of her sexual being just literally, it was just like a flower opening. She just awoke. And so we thought we'd hit pay dirt. We're like, this is it. We just need to get this doctor to write us a tiny little bit of testosterone because she's going to go on full hormone replacement now. So she's going to be completely shut down. So the doctor wanted to prescribe a certain amount of progesterone, a certain amount of estrogen, but she was unwilling to give us any androgens at all. And we knew for a fact that taking androgens out of the equation was not going to solve the problems. It was certainly not going to help her gym performance or her desire to maintain the body composition that she had. And while we now figured out that estrogen was a major player in the game, it's a known scientific fact that one of the reasons that things like hormonal birth control can be so negative to a girl's libido is because it tanks your testosterone level. So I went back to the lab again, as I like to say, and started doing more work and figured out a cocktail that basically works for my wife that no one on earth was willing to give us. We went to multiple different doctors. No one would give her injectable estradiol for any length of time. Everybody wanted to give her a cream or a patch or some kind of expensive modality. She also needed progesterone or a synthetic progestin, and they wanted to give pills or patches. The first patch they gave her was costing us $300 a month. So I got into what? And I was allergic to it. And she was allergic to the patch. So what I did is I got into the science of it and figured out that the patch was nothing more than an expensive delivery device for a drug that's been around forever called norethindrone. I think that's norethindrone or norethindrone. It is the active synthetic progestin that she was being given. And so we just sourced the progestin. So she has these pills, the norethisterone pills, I think that's what they call it. Do you know what it's called, baby?
I'm sorry, what?
What's your pill called, your progesterone pill? Norethindrone. So basically, the doctor tried to prescribe her this crazy high dose to be taken like once a month or once a week, and it was. I knew because of the chemistry it was going to cause a lot of peaks and troughs, and we want her to have the most stable progesterone possible because all of her PMDD and PMS symptoms come when her progesterone and her estrogen levels have a large disparity between the two. That is definitively the cause of PMDD. You want to keep these levels very consistent throughout the course of a cycle, and the human body doesn't want to do that because it uses the changing levels to trigger ovulation and all of these other things inside of a woman's body. So when the estrogen spikes and the progesterone tanks, or vice versa, this is what separates one phase of menses from another. And we don't want that. We're not having children anymore. So what we did is we took the pill that was prescribed for a month, and she crushed it up and she takes it in daily doses because it's an acetate pill, I think. So she takes it in a daily dose. So she takes a daily dose of progesterone to control her progesterone side of her cycle, or her system. And then what we did is we sourced our own estrogen, because estrogen is not controlled like testosterone is. So you can legally make your own estrogen. If you get estradiol raw, which is what we had, estradiol valerate, you can legally just turn it into an injectable in your kitchen. It's very easy to do. And so we homebrew our own estrogen. So she takes an injection of estradiol valerate twice a week. Actually, it's every other day. A small amount of estradiol valerate every other day. She takes her progesterone powder once a day. And then she takes primobolan injected twice a week. So primobolan for the androgen, estradiol valerate for the estrogen side, and progesterone for the progesterone side. And for those of you who are wondering, why does she just not take the progesterone? If you have a uterus, if you have a uterus intact, you have to take progesterone in the presence of estradiol, or it can cause problems. It can lead to uterine cancers, swelling of the uterine linings, all kinds of stuff going on down there. And so you have to have all three to keep everything in checks and balances. When we put together this protocol, which she's now been on for a very length of time, suddenly my wife, who was dry as the Sahara Desert for 9 years out of our 10-year marriage, is a veritable slip and slide, baby. It takes nothing to get her going. The whole problem she was having for 9 years of our marriage and 6 years of a previous marriage had nothing to do with psychology. It had nothing to do with lack of interest. It had nothing to do with the wrong partner, penis size, toys, all of the things that we thought were causing all of her problems. Every single one of them was solved by getting her estradiol into the proper range. And she has a sex drive now that is literally pushed to start. She is outpacing me these days in libido, and that has never happened in the course of our marriage. So for all of the complaining that I have done on this channel, I just want to bring this together. My wife's sexual lubrication, libido, interest, desire, orgasm, all of those things have been absolutely solved by purely getting her hormone levels in check. So for all of you ladies out there who may at some point have been going through this, maybe you're going through it right now, maybe you just want to be prepared for when your body does start going through the change. What we have discovered in my wife, which is equally as true in men, the number one problem that I run into when I'm running various steroid cycles, the thing that is most likely to cause what I call on this channel broke D game, which is when my little soldier is not either standing at attention or staying at attention or behaving long enough. When the soldier is not performing his duties, 99% of the time, this is caused by my estrogen being either too high or too low. It can also be caused by prolactin, but that's for another video. That's not going to affect your average man. So if you are a couple watching this channel right now, and let's say you're not bodybuilders at all, you don't use steroids at all, but you're having sex problems in your marriage, I am begging and pleading with you. The very next thing you need to do in your life is both you and your wife go out and get your hormone levels checked. Men, you want a sensitive, an LCMS sensitive estradiol check. It has to be sensitive. Don't go get a standard estrogen check. Find out what your, order a sensitive estrogen and a sensitive testosterone check. Your doctor will know what these are. They are LCMS tests, and they will check for exactly what your specific level of testosterone is and your specific level of estrogen. Men, if your estrogen is not in the middle of the range, if it is flagging high or low, that is 100% the cause of your ED or your sexual dysfunction. And so you guys can be popping Cialis pills like Skittles. You can be doing all kinds of herbal treatments and all this nonsense. And I'm telling you 100%, if your estrogen is not in the sweet spot of the range, or maybe even a little bit on the high end, it is the causal factor of your ED. And if you get your estrogen put back in range, it will be a game changer for you. Ladies, same thing for you. If your estrogen is not, you want to have an estrogen level minimum probably 70 picograms per milliliter. If your estrogen is below that level, then and you are experiencing low libido, lubrication problems, I can almost guarantee you that your problem is related to your estradiol level. Get your estrogen levels checked, ladies. Get your testosterone levels checked. I know that that's going to be an ender for a lot of you. A lot of you are not going to want to go down the pathway that my wife and I did to handle her androgen side. But ladies, if you will get your estrogen levels checked and put back in line, that alone will be game changing for the health of your relationship, your sex life, your enjoyment of intercourse, your everything. It is absolutely game changing. My wife and I have literally tried it all, and it is a travesty that at no point along the line did a doctor say, hey, let's take a look at your estrogen. And one of the things that keyed me into it finally was that my wife had admitted that she had been found to have low estrogen at an earlier point in her first marriage. And it was just that she was like, but they tried all these treatments and none of them worked. And so I kind of took that as a sign of, hey, let's examine this. And when I looked at the treatments that they were prescribing, it was very clear why they weren't working. And when we started using injectable estradiol, that is what you want. Injectable estradiol is the best way to replace estrogen. You do not want a cream, you do not want a patch, and you certainly do not want a pill. Ladies, the 90% of the negative side effects that come from estradiol replacement, hormone replacement therapy, all the horror stories that the doctors will tell you about increased likelihood of heart attack, stroke, all of that BS that they will tell you as a reason not to put you on estrogen comes from estradiol pills. It is not caused by estradiol injections. The problem is nobody wants to deal with prescribing you the injectable form. A lot of ladies don't want to do it. They're scared of it. It is very easy. So I'm here to tell you, men and women, anybody who is in this situation, if you need help dialing this in, I am not a doctor. I am a coach. I am an advocate. I cannot give you medical advice, but I can tell you exactly word for word, dose for dose, drug for drug, exactly what my wife and I used to solve a problem that has plagued her entire life. And I've been waiting to make this video because I've come on my channel so many times and said, Anavar fixed it, Primo fixed it, and then it's like 2 weeks later, it fell apart again. How long have you been on this protocol?
With this higher level of estrogen, it's been about 3, maybe 4 months.
So she was on a lower level of estrogen that was providing good libido and good lubrication for an extended period of time. And in efforts of trying to keep up with me, she increased, I guess, the dose of estrogen slightly. And so she's been on that for 4 months. So sum total, since the beginning of the year, are we close?
It's actually been 2 years.
2 years.
Yeah, the estrogen. But what happened when we did the increase was that, remember one time I was supposed to pin estrogen and estrogen and Primo on the same day, and I accidentally pinned estrogen twice.
And you got
and then
raging
I had
horny.
This crazy libido like I've never
Yeah.
had, and we were like, I wonder if it was because of the estrogen.
See?
And so then I just increased my dose of estrogen, and it was like it never went away.
Okay, so if you didn't hear that, but your libido and lubrication was good already up to that point.
It was good ever since I started the Primo and the estrogen.
Yeah.
My lubrication's been good ever since I started the estrogen a couple of years ago.
Okay, so there you go. So estrogen immediately solved the lubrication problem. And
Improved libido.
improved libido.
Great.
And then dialing in the androgen side, put together the perfect lubrication with perfect libido. And if you didn't hear what she just said, everything was running along just fine until at a lower dose of estrogen. Then she accidentally injected twice the amount because she confused the dosage of her Primo with the dosage of her estrogen, and her libido shot through the roof. And so she was like, wait a minute. Maybe that was, she pinned the extra estrogen. We thought she was going to be crying and bloating and all of this. And she just had raging out of control libido. And so she said, hey, I'm going to test this for a while. So for the past 4 months, she's been taking the higher dose. So what, in case they're curious, what's your dosage? We know you take 20 milligrams of Primobolan. What's your, you don't even know.
I have to look.
See? Pause, please. This video's already run on way longer than I expected. And if my recent coworkers are here, this is how it gets down on this channel. I feel like a radio host. Like I don't want any dead air for too long while she's looking up something that she takes every single week.
I was taking 0.4 every single week.
Now
I take 0.6 milligrams every other day
of
estradiol.
She's taking 0.6 milligrams of estradiol valerate every other day. That is increased from her starting point that was 0.4 milligrams of estradiol every day. So
it was, at first it was 0.4 a week, and then it went to we adjusted a few times, but the last increase was from 0.4 to 0.6.
Okay, so currently she's on 0.6 milligrams every other day of estradiol valerate, and she takes 20 milligrams of Primobolan per week, and she takes whatever the math is of the progesterone. Do you have that too?
Slightly less than a quarter milligram a day.
Slightly. I can't even believe she just said that to me.
I know.
Apparently, she takes slightly less than a quarter of a milligram of norepinephrine per day. What is slightly less than a quarter?
It's because the way the scale weighs it out to get it doesn't weigh it out it doesn't weigh it to exactly quarter milligrams. So it's like maybe 0.24 or something instead of 0.25. Because of the way
because it's so sensitive. It's not because it's not sensitive enough.
It's not sensitive enough. So
do you see how meticulous it is? So she takes a quarter of a milligram of norepinephrine per day, and 0.06 milligrams of estradiol valerate every other day, and 20 milligrams of Primo a week. So if you want the free protocol right there, she's 44 years old. She is perimenopausal. When we got her initial blood work back, her estrogen level was like 7 picograms per milliliter. It was something just crazy low. So for example, I'm clearly a male, and I require about 30 picograms per milliliter or my sexual functioning is completely broken. Hers was below mine. And when we saw that, I was like, oh my God, this could be everything right here in one place. And sure enough, putting her estrogen in line immediately started rectifying all of these problems. So again, ladies, gentlemen, guys, girls, do not trust your doctor to do his fucking job. Why no one checked this? Why no one bothered? They were literally handing her SSRIs and prescribing psychotherapy for her sex problems instead of just doing the most basic, simple blood work to confirm that her hormones were properly managed. And to me, that's what I said in the beginning of this video. The beginning of this video, I said that the total lack of women's health care in this country is an absolute miscarriage of justice, and this is just further evidence. One simple blood test could have saved us tens of thousands of dollars and orders of magnitude in suffering and misery and depression and fights and dissonance and discord. There's so much could have been prevented by a doctor just simply making sure that everything from the hormone side of things was in line. I don't know why it is that doctors are so terrified of hormones. Anybody who's watching my channel, who's on TRT or who's paving his own way, knows they don't want to give men hormones. They don't want to give women hormones. I am beginning to believe that 90% of all psychological problems that people experience are hormone related, don't have anything to do with serotonin, norepinephrine, dopamine. It's all bullshit. They just do absolutely not want to mess with your hormones. But we have done the very, very painstaking hard work for you. So there you have it. If you want further information on this topic, I do consults for $75. My wife will talk to you if you would prefer to talk to a woman about this. If you are a woman and you would prefer to talk to a woman about this, my wife can offer you the same thing. We are happy to help. We want to help anybody out there who's having this problem. I have given you the information for free. This video is coming free to you. If you need extra help, then we will charge you for it. $75 for a one-on-one consultation, and we will go over all of your blood work, everything that you need to get on a similar protocol as her, or if you're just interested in going the full legal pathway, we can help you with that as well. We can help you with the right questions or things to talk to your doctor about. All of this, the data and the research that you might need to back this up. And again, if you want to hear this from my wife, she is absolutely available. She also has a YouTube channel at The Wife Sarah, and you can hit her up there if you have any questions. So there you have it. I'm very happy to report that I can now say, after beta testing this for over a year, all of the sexual problems that my wife and I had for the vast majority of our relationship have been solved by properly dialing in her hormones, and you can do it too. That's it. As always, thank you for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.